Tracy Katz Muhl, Democratic Committeeperson of Northfield Township. I'd like to welcome you to the 80, the Cook County Democratic Party's podcast about our organization, its candidates, and its leaders. We're currently interviewing the party's endorsed candidates for the June 28th, 2022 primary, so you can learn more about their backgrounds and unique stories. Today, I'm excited to welcome Mike Weaver, a candidate for judge. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Tracy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
So let's start with some easy background kind of information. Who are you and how is it that you wound up here today looking to be a judge?
Great question. I'm still trying to figure that out. So again, my name's Mike Weaver. I'm a partner at McDermott, Will & Emery. So I've been there for about 15 years. The last 2 years, I've been our pro bono litigation partner, which means I coordinate all of our pro bono litigation efforts across the country. And that's really one of the reasons why I got here today and interested in becoming a judge, because I see firsthand when litigants are not represented or underrepresented and how the judicial system doesn't always work for them. And so I think as a judge, you can really make a difference on a daily basis because you can help explain the law. Obviously, you can't be an advocate for a party, but you can be an advocate for the law and make sure that the parties that appear before you understand their rights, understand what's going on, and understand the process so the system actually works for everybody.
As a pro bono litigation partner, did you get a sense of where legal services are most needed in Cook County?
I think so. I mean, it sort of comes in waves depending on really what's going on in the world. Obviously, a couple of years ago, we had major foreclosure issues that was really needed a lot of pro bono assistance. Last couple of years, we needed a lot of help with asylum and immigration cases, not so much in our state courts, but definitely in our federal courts. And currently right now is eviction issues. And people are sort of right on the edge of homelessness a lot of times with evictions. And so helping with the help desk and other activities to make sure that people can stay in their homes, and also that it's works for both landlord and tenant, and make sure that the process is even as opposed to too contentious for folks.
That makes a lot of sense. One of the things that really grabbed me about your resume when we first met was that your commitment to service went beyond just your professional role as a pro bono partner. And in fact, we were first connected through your role as board president at the Family Defense Center. Could you talk a little bit about how you got involved in that work and what that's meant to your career?
Yeah, my work with the Family Defense Center has probably been the most meaningful. And I should probably explain what the Family Defense Center is. So it's a nonprofit organization that represented families who we believe were wrongly accused by DCFS of abuse and neglect. And so we represented the families through that process. It's now merged with the Domestic Violence Legal Clinic, is now called Ascend Justice. But I got involved early on as an associate at my firm. My two good friends took a case in an administrative law hearing, lost, and they weren't litigators, and they asked me to take it to the circuit court. And that's how I first got involved. And the woman, and I'll sort of talk about the case because I think that's sort of carried me through all my work, is she was a 18-year-old young mother. Her baby was first learning how to cruise, and she was doing an art project. And what happened is the baby got injured. A colored pencil went into her neck. The baby was fine. The mom rushed her to the emergency room. The baby was fine. DCFS did an investigation. They determined that it was an accident, but they still indicated the mom for neglect. And the reasoning was that they shouldn't have colored pencils out. And what that meant is for 10 years, she was on the list where she couldn't volunteer at her school. She couldn't be active in her school. So we took up her case. We actually had to take it up to the Illinois Appellate Court and argued that an accident is not neglect. And that's basically what the appellate court ruled. And so from then I was hooked in just seeing the difference that this made in this mom's life. And so I've been actively involved with Family Defense Center, was on the board for about 8 years, 4 years as the board president, and still taking cases. I have a case right now in circuit court that we're gearing up for.
That's really important work, especially as we're watching bigger picture questions of reform within DCFS to make sure we're really serving our children and our families well.
Yes. Yeah, I think DCFS is so overstretched, but I think it goes back to representation matters. And we've seen through Family Defense Center and Ascend Justice that when families are represented by an attorney, that they have a better outcome, and that DCFS understands that a lot of times that it shouldn't have been an indicated finding, because the parents were doing the best they could. So.
Yeah, that's all of our goal for sure.
Right.
There is one thing on your resume that really sticks out as unique. You had an opportunity to do an overseas clerkship, something that's really atypical for an attorney. How did that come about, and how did that affect your duty?
Yeah. So I clerked for the High Court of American Samoa, which American Samoa, for those of you don't know, and probably most of you don't, as I didn't really, is a U.S. territory in the middle of the South Pacific. It's actually closer to New Zealand than it is to Hawaii. It's about a 5-hour flight from Hawaii. And I guess I'm old enough when I was in law school that we still had paper files of internships and applications. And so I was going through that file for something else. It caught my eye. I knew I wanted to try to clerk after law school. And I applied to American Samoa really on a sort of see what would happen. I thought it would be a great experience, and it was. So I mean, one, being in paradise for a year, you can't complain about. But it also, the High Court is both a trial and appellate court, and so I worked for 2 justices, and I did trial work and appellate work, helping them research and write opinions and attending hearings. And it was just an amazing experience on so many levels. And my firm didn't think I'd come back to the Chicago winters, but I guess I missed them too much. So.
What convinced you to come back? Has this always been home for you?
No, I'm originally from Vermont, so I'm used to the cold, I should say, at least we can ski in Vermont. It's a little bit harder in the streets of Chicago, but my parents were innkeepers, and I wound up going to school in Washington, D.C., and really enjoyed it. I worked in education for about 6 years before law school, and I came to Chicago for law school. I went to Loyola Chicago. Loved that experience, and then Chicago, I just fell in love with the city and have started my life here, and I see no reason to leave, because it's just a great city. And I'm not native, but I'm trying to claim to be native as much as possible.
You're getting pretty close.
Yeah.
A little bit about kind of what your day-to-day life is like outside of being a lawyer here in Chicago. So
probably the biggest thing, and before the campaign is I'm married to my husband Paul, who was in education for 20 years. And he sort of semi-retired, and about 3 years ago, he came with the great idea of opening a record store in Andersonville neighborhood. Of course, I was not supportive of opening a record store, but he won that argument, and so we opened November 1st of 2018, and it's been a blast. And so the joke that Paul and I have is I'm the unpaid intern. So when I have some free time on a weekend, I'll go in on a Saturday and pull a shift, and it's great. I mean, I'm biased, but I love the store. I love seeing, it's a great way to spend some time with Paul. And I love the people who come in here because they are excited about music, and it's a much different than my day-to-day job as a lawyer. That's for sure.
You may win for coolest spouse perfect.
Yes. Yes. And normally Paul wins in all categories of cooler than I am. I'm just a lawyer. So.
So let's talk about that transition, going from just a lawyer to hopefully being one of the next judges of our circuit court. What's driving that decision for you? What are you most looking forward to about being on the bench when you're already in a really fulfilling pro bono role? Yeah,
I think, and the analogy, and maybe it's a poor one, as pro bono counsel, I feel like I'm in the ocean with a tablespoon or a teaspoon trying to make a difference. And for me, I think it's for being a judge, I feel like I'll have a bucket because I'll be there every day. And again, it takes a lot of people. It takes a village to make change. But I think one of the most things I'm excited about is being on the front lines on a day-to-day basis, working with Cook County residents to make sure, again, that they know their rights, that they know what the process is involved, and that they have a good experience coming to court. I know a lot of times people come to court and it's probably on their worst day. most people aren't excited to come to court. And so I'm not going to say that it's going to be unicorns and rainbows, but I want them to have a good experience and feel that they've been heard through the process. And that's really what's motivating me. The other piece is, I think, representation. As a gay man, I think it's very important that our judiciary represents the county. And so I think I add a little diversity to the bench when I win on June 28th.
I know you've given back to the community too in terms of legal services. Can you talk a little bit about work you've done with Senator Halstead and Howard Brown?
Yeah. So for me, it's a theme that you're probably hearing, Tracy, is sort of making sure people understand what their rights are. And so early on, as an associate, I coordinated with Senator Halstead, which is basically the largest LGBT support center in the Midwest. And they ran a legal clinic where we helped LGBT individuals on a number of issues. I mean, it ranged, this was before marriage equality in Illinois happened. So it was with probate and other things, from just landlord-tenant issues to discrimination at the workplace. And so we did that at Senator Halstead, and then we branched out to Howard Brown Broadway Youth Center, which focuses on youth, basically 14 to 21. And we help those individuals, and a lot of those individuals were experiencing homelessness or other serious issues, because a lot of times their home life was not positive after they came out. And one of the proudest things that we did, and a basic thing that we did, is work with the clerk's office to obtain birth records for individuals, because a lot of times they didn't have access to those from their parents, or they were estranged from their parents. And so with that birth record, then they were able to get ID, they were able to get other access to other access to other pieces of IDs and apply for jobs and things like that with that ID. And so that was really rewarding when I could see a client of mine be able to sort of get footing and advance in society.
That's terrific. Yeah, really important work, especially for younger people like yourself.
Yeah. I mean, they're so vulnerable. I mean, and they don't know what they don't know, and to sort of help them, guide them through the system, because it can be very daunting. Why I love Chicago, they are very good at bureaucracy.
Given the breadth of your practice and pro bono experience, it's really no surprise that you have fabulous bar ratings. But the bar ratings process is a challenging one, even for really good, talented attorneys. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like going through that process and sort of the meaning of the terrific ratings you acquired?
No, I was very proud, because again, I think I have a lot of experience, but you never know, because it's about 15 different organizations evaluating you and going through your life, unpicking your life. I think one of the proudest things that I am, and I got qualified or highly qualified from all the bar associations, but one of the things that I'm most proud of is you have to list about 20 different people who you're on the other side with, your opposing counsel, and the bar associations interview those folks. And one of the feedback that I got from the bar associations is those individuals thought I had a good temperament and respected the way I handled the case. And I think that's so important, both in litigation, because you're fighting enough over the dispute, the lawyers shouldn't fight. And I think that's really important for a judge as well, is to have the right temperament. And so I was really proud of the fact that opposing counsel thought I was a good person after winning and losing against them.
I'm glad you brought that word up, temperament, because that is thrown around a lot in this process. And I think whether you're looking at it from the perspective of a litigant or a lawyer, it's this intangible factor that is really important to this whole process. What is it about your personality and background you think that leads to this kind of temperament that makes both opposing counsels, co-counsels, litigants feel so excited about your candidacy?
I think for me, it's my upbringing. My parents taught me to be good to everybody, and show kindness to everybody. Sort of always take the high road, and not to stress the little stuff. And so for me, it's just treating people the way I would want to be treated. And if I'm going into court, I would want a judge to respect my arguments and allow me to talk, but also respect when the judge is going to talk, and the same thing with opposing counsel, and just be kind. I think there's too many times in the world today, we're not talking to each other and we're not hearing each other.
How is the campaign side of this going? How do we get the message about you, your background out to the voters of Cook County?
Yeah, for me, it's been actually really enjoyable. And I've been able to travel around the county so much. I didn't realize how big the county was until you actually drive it. But and for me, this has been a great growth opportunity, because I've sort of stepped out of my comfort zone and meet people, and talk to people where I would normally probably shy away. I'm sort of somewhat of an introvert, I think. And so to get to know people across the county has been really rewarding. So I hope people are able to learn more about me. I got the website, michaelweaverforjudge.com, and on Facebook. But I'm really trying to get the message out that I think I would be a good judge and fair and balanced to everybody who appears before me.
What's it like being part of a slate of candidates working together as a team?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, I think it's one of those things that the slating committee, the party, I think did a really great job of finding a very diverse group of folks. And what's nice is we all get along. I mean, I'll go back to the jury studies that show sort of diversity makes better decision making and better outcomes. And I think that's really true of our slate. It's like we really get together and talk about how do we promote ourselves, how do we get out to different communities. I know people that people in my slate don't know, and making sure that those introductions happen. So I've really enjoyed getting to know people that I didn't know before, from different walks of life, different backgrounds, from state's attorneys to other people in private practice. It's been really a lot of fun. One of the bonuses, and I have friends for life, regardless of what happens to any of us. We're stuck together for a while. I know that.
Are there any divisions in the slate? Do we have, Cubs versus Sox like this?
We don't have time to talk about sports. The division is who's going to drive tonight.
That's perfect. What can people do who've come to tune into our podcast and are excited about your candidacy and what you bring to the bench? What can they do to help?
I think the first thing is just make sure you vote. Early voting starts June 13th in the county, and election day is June 28th. So that's the primary thing to do, is vote in the primary. And then the other is, if you like what you see, especially with the slate, is tell friends. One of the things that we've noticed is, because the primary is on a different date, I think so many people are used to voting around St. Patrick's Day. A lot of our job has been education, that there is an election coming up on June 13th for early voting, and June 28th. And so it's just telling other people about the election and telling other people about the candidates, especially people that you like to see, because judicial races and judges touch every aspect of people's lives. But we are the definition of a down ballot candidate. I mean, it is literally down ballot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm punch number 179, which means you have to make 178 decisions before you get to me when you vote. And so that's really important, is for people to just talk about the judges and get the word out that way.
Your race is a contested race, right?
Yes, it is. Yep. I have two opponents. I'm happy to say, though, that I'm the highest qualified in my race. And I think I have the most experience, and I think I've touched a lot of folks at the race and gained a lot of support from across the county, which I'm really proud of.
So it really does make a difference if people get down to the bottom of the ballot to vote for Mike Weaver and for your fellow compatriots on this.
It does. It does. It does.
It does. Terrific. Any parting thoughts that you want to share with our Cook County voters as they get to vote for you?
Well, I was just excited. I appreciate everybody who tuned in today to listen to us. And Tracy, thanks so much for your time today. I know you're a busy person as well. So I just hope everybody comes out on June 28th and votes and takes the time to think about judicial candidates, and especially Mike Weaver for judge on June 28th.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Mike. I really felt like I drew the lucky straw here when I found I was going to get to interview you today. You've been a wonderful member of the bar. You've made wonderful contributions to pro bono, and you're going to be an excellent member of both the slate and eventually our Cook County bench. So I can't encourage people more strongly to get out and vote for Mike Weaver and for the rest of our Cook County Democratic slate for judge. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and see you on our next podcast.
Thanks, everybody.